Welcome to the Alchemy Experience podcast, where transformation isn't just talked about, it's lived. I'm Erin, and around here, we're turning breakdowns into breakthroughs, pain into power, and survival into serious thriving. Whether I'm flying solo or vibing with a badass guest, we dive into all the things on health, creating beautiful relationships, and building wealth. We're keeping it real, raw, and ridiculously empowering. It gets a little juicy, a little bit wild, and super inspiring. This isn't just another podcast, it's your permission slip to evolve loud, proud, and on purpose. Let's go light the world on fire. Well, hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Alchemy Experience podcast. And our series continues with Legacy Leaders. Whoop, whoop. So today, Des and I are going to really dive right into part two of Legacy Leadership. And last episode, be sure to catch that one, our first episode in the series, all about legacy. And today, we're going to dive into leadership. That looks like and feels like, and to us anyway. And so really we talked about what is legacy last time and how that has impacted us as women, as moms, as entrepreneurs. And I think diving in today about what is leadership to us. And I love our tagline and what we've created and what we are building of legacy leaders, where we have the word her right inside leadership. Because I think if we look back to just like any ancient times, even though men have ruled the world in certain arenas, right next to them has always been a woman.
Hmm.
There is so much power in masculinity, obviously, but there is just as equal power in the feminine side. And so I think you and I represent that well, but also um, kind of have a little twist on it, right? Of what we see and what we believe and our values. And we were just talking about that before popping on here, are aligned and how we view things. So let's talk about from your perspective, Des, leadership. What does that mean to you?
Oof. So I had a really important call yesterday, and what I was telling her is that I feel like what's happening in leadership is that we're becoming less and less authentic because of the limitations that have been placed on us about the roles that we play. And what I want to do with leadership and what I think is really critical in just being the voice of this is that to bring storytelling back to leadership because it really brings authenticity back to leadership. I think that's an important piece to this. As a woman, I grew up hearing stories and sitting down at the table with my parents and hearing about their life stories and their lessons connected to it. And I raised my kids very much the same way. And, you know, as the woman leading in my family, I think the storytelling piece from me to my kids and the lessons that come along with that, I think that the legacy has really been passed down because of those storytelling pieces. And I really love that you talked about the feminine of this, right? How we can do it just as well and have it be so impactful and so powerful just in the way that women represent and the way that women show up. And so Erin, I love your whole unboxed coaching that you do when it comes to this, because I really love the idea that, because I feel the same way, that leadership itself has been boxed in so many ways.
Mm.
And I think it's important for women to stay true to their stories, stay true to their authenticity, stay true to their values, and not be put into that box. I think that's the best way to show up as a leader. And I think it's missing in many systems. And I think what happens when there's leaders, so many of them boxed into certain roles, I think what happens is they become less empathetic.
Mhm.
I think they become less approachable, and I think they become less effective. So I truly do believe that heart-centered leaders is something that is not only needed, but it's something that is necessary. And I think leadership really has to, have a really great mix of many things. And I think one of them is heart-centered leadership and authenticity and living outside of the box in leadership, really truly standing in your own and your own voice and your true values and your true beliefs and your true authenticity. I think it's the most effective and it's the most relatable, which in return just makes everybody want to receive what you're doing and how you're leading.
Yeah,
Yes.
so good. Yeah, leadership to me is exactly what you're speaking. It's that unwavering ability to be true to what is needed for the whole, right? And sometimes that might look insensitive or people might not take that well, but sometimes we have to say, hey, we've got to pivot, we've got to shift, and this may impact you differently than the next person, but as a whole, we have to be able to see the collective, and I think when it comes to legacy leadership, being able to see the collective of what are we handing down? What's our legacy? And there are certain things that we need to cut ties with because they're no longer relevant. Doesn't mean the story isn't impactful to keep talking about, oh, this is what the past was, right? But
Mhm.
I think it's important to say, and we're no longer going to operate this way, or we're
Mhm.
no longer going to fit ourselves into this little box that we think we have to be. I know for you, you were a teacher by trade,
Mhm.
so you thought teaching had to look a certain way until you were burned out and so many things were happening in your life where you had to question, what if teaching ultimately is being a leader? And what if that looks different? You are teaching all the time. You're teaching women how to write books. You're teaching women how to evolve. You're teaching women how to grow in their own legacy. And it's teaching women how to tell their story, right? That is all that you're doing through Warrior Women and Merge Worldwide. And um, it doesn't look what you thought it was going to look like years ago as a teacher, right? But it looks better for
Mhm.
you. So being able to unbox from that and say, like, okay, wait, what if I'm not in a classroom teaching young kids anymore? What if it looks like this instead? And so that's something that I think as a leader, we have to be able to do. We have to be able to step back, evaluate, and say, like, wait, what if we decide to make it look different? What if we don't? What if we say, like, it doesn't have to be, I can teach in different ways? And I think that is really important. And then when it comes to me and my experience as a leader, I found myself in positions trying to navigate being, as a social worker, being a senior and then being a supervisor and being a manager of teams. And at each level, I was like, okay, once I reach this level, like it will look different and I'll feel more in leadership and in community and being able to serve at a different way. And it almost was worse. I almost felt so much more disconnected from the work. And I think that's what you're speaking to is, we are as people evolve, the lack of authenticity is because they're so disconnected from the actual work. And I think you and I don't want that, And so I'm always reinventing myself. I'm plugging us in here. So I'm always reinventing myself. I'm always pivoting and being like, what worked well? What are people needing right now? How can I serve at a different level capacity? And so I think that's just what we're trying to bring to the table and help others pull out of themselves is that piece of like, how can I reinvent myself to be better for me and better for my community. But ultimately, I think what's really hit home for me in the past few years is knowing when to lead and knowing when to follow. And that's been something, I know when we were on the cruise for Warrior Women, I was asked on the panel when we were live, what do you have going on? And all the women there were sharing like their next thing and what they got going. And even though I had things going, I was like, I'm just sitting in like embracing what's right now. because I don't know what's next, because I want to really sit in this and be able to learn from it and then decide what's next from it. So I think leadership, the best leaders know when to step in and take charge and know when to back off and let others take charge. And I really think I'm trying to get better at being that caliber of leader.
That's so good. I love that. It's true.
Yeah. And the women that we're starting to meet and that are in our circle and that have been in our circle and will continue to, they're bringing their communities into our circle and them being able to step into their own leadership. And I think what we're growing in Legacy Leaders in our membership, which we'll be talking about for those of you that want to be involved in it, reach out to us. We're going to really have opportunities for women to step in and become a leader inside of this group. And it's going to look um, different than I think anything we've seen before because we want to lead other leaders. We don't want to just lead a group. Um, we want people to come in, learn and grow together, and then step into their own leadership within. So I think this is just so cool what we're doing.
Yeah, me too. I think it's super effective understanding as a leader too, that it's not just like the leader on the top with
Correct.
everybody else almost minion like at the bottom,
Right.
right? That's not what this is. So there is leadership that does look like that often though. And so what this really is, I think what is critical and the difference of what we're doing is we're saying, hey, listen, we're just the ones hosting the space, but together we're all going to pull towards the same mission, which is creating a life full of legacy, and really being intentional about that and leaning into the responsibility of that and having so much fun and so much joy and laughter and life with other women that are powerhouses along the way so that together we're pulling a weight together and then that weight becomes very, very light versus heavy. I think when people think about legacy, sometimes what I get from a vibe from people, they're like, man, this is a little too deep.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to go so deep, right? And it's like, well, if we start pulling that weight of legacy instead of making it seem like something that makes you feel timid and like I haven't done enough or I like it's not I don't even know my next move, right? It's more like together we're pulling the rope together along the journey of it and really embracing the journey like you were saying, like really embracing the journey as a group, as a collective. And it makes that weight and the burden of legacy that sometimes people carry, it takes that away because now you're in a group where everybody's kind of chugging along at the same time. And, as a group, as a collective, you get to the end goal much quicker and so much more at ease.
Mhm.
It becomes fun to talk about. I love talking about this with you because we get to go back and forth and dream together and plan together and live outside of the box together. And it's not so heavy because together we can have this conversation and have fun with it. And I think that's kind of where we need to get back to, for women is we have to have it be fun again, have it be less of a burden and less of a like intimidation almost, and
Yeah.
have it be more of a collective, right?
Yeah. We don't have to be perfect. We can show up with what we have in that moment. Before we got on the call, we were talking about vulnerable things, PMS and being on our cycles and like all of the things. And we're talking about some real personal business endeavors and some real personal things that can impact us in our family. And not only are we, making light of it and laughing about things, but we're also really real about like giving each other feedback of like, hey, I don't think you should make that move. Like, I'm concerned. Like, this is what I want you to think about, friend to friend, woman to woman. I love you and I want you to know this. And those conversations are not being had because people, for one of two reasons, they are so afraid of offending somebody
Mm-hmm.
and being looked at as a negative human for sharing their love and concern, or they're not concerned enough because they're trying to leapfrog over somebody and not
Right.
willing to share with them, hey, I can pull you along here, but then I need you to pull your weight here, right? Like people are so afraid to say that. And you and I are not.
Hmm.
And so we're really trying to change the culture of that we can have our own business and run it well. And there might be things that overlap, but we're not competing. And we're not trying to leapfrog over each other. We're trying to support each other's businesses and say, hey, how did your retreat go? What did you do well in yours that I can learn from so that in my retreat I can implement that? And I'm willing to say, hey, yeah, here are some things. You got this, do this, and you're willing to do the same. Right. And so if we can really start to shift the culture of that and saying, hey, there's a time to lead and a time to follow, and both are really important and really valuable. And I think that's what we're doing here. And that's what we want for this episode for you guys to consider. What does leadership mean to you? And where does that fit into your life? Are you surrounding yourself with women that are valuing leadership the way you do? And I think that's something you and I have talked a lot about, and
Hmm.
working through vetting the people we want in our communities.
Yeah, I think the responsibility of leading is so critical and it's so humbling and it's so rewarding and it's so impactful, right? And so when people are reaching out to you and saying, I do believe that you're the one that's going to help me, you're going to be the one that I'm going to turn to lead me through this part of my journey. I've had those conversations multiple times this week with women, and it's humbling and it's honoring and it's all the things. So, looking at leadership, you have to really like, are you the person that you are on this Zoom and off this Zoom?
Mhm.
Do you lead the same way that you say you do off the screen? That's very important and very, I think it's very eye-opening because there is a moment where you got to really assess yourself as a leader and saying, am I showing up the way that my people need me to be showing up? And does my team hold me accountable and look the same?
Yeah.
Because that's very important as a leader and your team, right? It's one of the first things that I look at. If it's a one man show, I have a hard time believing it. And if your team, there's a big huge difference of a leader with an amazing team who have the team's best interest versus a leader who has a team of people who are trying to leapfrog.
Yeah.
And that is something that's so important. So yeah, I really love that this is a collaboration and it's a collective. That's very important for me. And I think it's really important for us to be attracting those kinds of leaders. And you and I believe, are very great examples of women who do this on the screen and off the screen. We, you know, are very real, very raw, very approachable, which is really great in leadership. Also, but empathetic, and we hold people accountable.
Yeah.
Right. So having that balance of being able to do the life like that, I think it just helps people in all areas. It's not just business, but it's also personal, but it's also like communal, right? Like together as a community, if we're able to clap together as women and help each other win and really want the best for other people's families too, like, why wouldn't you?
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you want her family to win? Right? Because if you don't, there's something not right there. And then you have to kind of like think about that. Like, is the leaders in your community people who genuinely want families to win and people to be abundant?
Mhm.
And then kind of like take a look at that. And so I think that this group is going to be full of heart-centered leaders. I think it's going to be a great reflection, a mirror of who we attract and the kind of people that we're trying to roll with. And I think it's okay that we're not going to be for everybody, and that's fine. And we're okay with that. But I really am looking forward to meeting the next legacy leaders in this area. I know it's important. I know it's needed. I know you and I are on a mission to find out who those girls are. It's going to bless us, bless them, and it's going to be all around just amazing as far as community, personal, and business development. So I look forward to seeing who's going to be our founding members.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, because they're the leaders, right? So we're going to be leading other leaders, and that's that's the key is we're looking for that caliber of woman who's ready to rock. So I'm excited. I think leadership is such a pivotal topic that we're not talking enough about. I think there are natural born leaders and there are people that can learn the skill. And looking at my kids and they lead in such very different ways. They're so different. And same with yours. Like your children
Mhm.
are very different human beings, but have like very beautiful ways of leading. And so it's how can we leave that legacy? How can we show them in real time what different types of leaders look like, but still doing it well and supporting each other and respecting each other and all of that. So such good conversation. I love this. I think leaving with the question of who are you as a leader? What does leadership look like to you? How do you how do you define it for yourself? And then going out and seeking people that are similar in values to you and different so that you can have an understanding of what different leadership looks like.
Mm.
And so, yeah, let us know. Send us some messages about what these questions are for you, these answers to these questions are for you. And we'd love to hear your take on what leadership means to you. And if you want to rock with us in Legacy Leaders, let us know. We are looking for some founding members. God bless you, Des. We're looking for some founding members. We have some already, and this is just going to keep growing. We're going to bring them on the show. We're going to continue to talk about these things. Stay tuned for our next episode as we talk more about legacy leadership and our pillars of how we are building this. And we want to hear from you guys on what else you want to hear from us about. So thanks, Tess, for this episode. Catch you next time, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Alchemy Experience. If this episode lit something up inside you, go ahead and share it with someone who's ready to rise too. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me online on all social media at The Alchemy Experience. Because transformation loves company, and together we all rise. And hey, don't just survive this week. Thrive like you frickin' mean it. Let's go let it up. Talk soon.